Well, hello everyone. Here, right here, I'm talking about warnings, cautions and warnings, and your photographer made in America right here. And a lot of times you want to know too is that whenever we do speak about warning signs, a lot of times that these are pretty much your signs like that you would normally see like you do the situations, right, like everybody might say that is toward the things that normally that you would maybe see if you're going to be looking at a still image or something like that, or if you're going to come up to these moments to where that you're going to be talking to somebody, and you may notice maybe a couple of things wrong with from how that the person is interacting or something like that, or like for how that they correspond with the question that you have or something like that. But I'm just showing right here is these like these drawings right here, but still it what is a good example of how you want to get is toward it whenever it comes to warning signs is toward it something that so if you want to call it as toward it something that you see that catches the mind by concern. So whenever you do think about that, and you want to know too that something that catches the mind by concern right here, and so it's like a catcher, but something that the catcher catches by the mind of concern. So whenever we do think about that for any reason at all in the year 102 is toward by concern. So every time you do think about that in year 102, that really that so it's like So if you're going to be looking at any sorts of labels, and like people might say that really, what's a good way of how to describe when we do talk about made in America, but you talk about for warning the warning labels and the warning signs and everything, and year 102 is to where that you may see these labels labeled on a lot of the products. Like let's just say that maybe if it is maybe the fireworks related products, or maybe if it is related to about anything such as to where that something something that you're working with in 102 that you might see the warning labels, but somebody might say that, well, really, some of those warning labels you may not see the warning labels on any of the items that you're going to be working with. So that's why it seems like that you look at the warning labels right here and want to know that I'm like, you hold the American flag right here, but then like you have right here talking about with we can see in the dark. No problem. It is your responsibility. Push buttons online. So you see right here that I don't know if everybody here has seen this before, but talking about for green, I'm like, for the push buttons online. And so this right here is like a little design that I came up with right here, but talking about, we can see in the dark right here. So this is like something that represents for the 4th of July right here. But really, how often, if anybody who's going to be working on something, and it's like, where that, how do you really even know that there's going to be anything that's going to really catch your concern whenever it comes to working with anything to celebrate maybe for the holiday, and let's just say if it's for the 4th of July holiday, or maybe if you are going to be working on anything, and 102 that you don't see any caution labels on anything, or maybe anything that kind of catches your attention about anything that you see that comes in concern, right? And so that's why it seems like that really that every time you do think about it and thinking is toward it, yeah, that whenever you do think about that and your word toward it, the yeah, that you have, if somebody does not see something that you can see for sure, like people might say that, if you're going to be actually somewhere where you see something that maybe not somebody, somebody else may not see, and a lot of times it's like, yeah, for sure, you're going to picture in your mind something or a certain moment, and then you might see something wrong with something, maybe if it's a still image or something like that, but still that. But if we're going to be talking about to where if you're going to be, in those, we're going to have those moments as to where you see something that maybe that you don't quite, you're trying to follow up about what all that is, and then also that knowing about that, yeah, that you look at something, but sometimes it takes you maybe a few minutes or a few seconds just to realize that, okay, yeah, that do you notice anything wrong about this moment right here, or yeah, so like anything that you got to look really carefully at. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, so whenever you do think about caution and whenever you do think about any source of warning, and so every time you do think about that in 102, that ways of how you can be able to tell somebody about what's a good way of how to explain about any source of warning signs, any source of caution signs, and all that. The things that you see, and what it really means is to where, yeah, do you see anything wrong with that picture? Do you see anything wrong with that? And 102, that yeah, whenever you do look at something in 102, that really that whenever you do think about any source of warning signs, what do warning signs pretty much mean is toward it something that catches the mind by concern and knowing about the things to speak up about, and so it sure seems that way that you think about any source of warning signs, and you're thinking as to where, okay, yeah, are we talking about fireworks, or maybe if we're talking about the fact that somebody is trying to tell you something. I'm like, yeah, somebody's trying to give you some advice. They're trying to they're trying to speak up to something, but still, people might say is toward it that how do you really even know that really if somebody is trying to reach out for any source of assistance. I'm like, yeah, any source of warning signs that you would see, in particular. So that's why it seems like somebody might even say that really a best way of how to describe any source of warning signs is just to know that moment is toward it. You really what source of signs do you think that you'll be able to see whenever it comes to understanding about yeah, that for how things are going, and then knowing about is toward, yeah, that you see anything anything wrong with yeah, cautions and warnings. Caution pretty much means is to where that yeah, that to be careful with like yeah, for anything that you're gonna be using, but still. So every time you do think about caution, and then every time you do think about warning, that right there is supposed to be like a message right there to where that yeah, for be careful or something. I'm like, yeah, a lot of times it means to be careful with with this. It's like yeah, be careful. Be careful, and be thoughtful and all that, and be careful for to be careful with what you work with. But then also it can also be a bias toward it. Try to picture in your mind. Yeah, try to picture in your mind about a possibility and to prevent prevented that possibility from getting worse, right? So every time you do think about that in 102, that really, what is a good way of how to explain about understanding about whenever it comes to a caution, and then whenever it comes to a warning sign, right? So every time you think about that in your 102, that yeah, usually that's marked on the label. If you're going to be working with anything, and let's just say besides fireworks, it could also be about maybe chemicals, cleaning chemicals, or maybe equipment or something like that. Any equipment that you're going to be working with, and 102 that you see anything that has like any sorts of a caution or warning signs or anything like that on there. And your 102 is to where they really that anything that catches your attention for sure, right? But I guess the question kind of goes by is toward it, really, if not everybody can really read that right there, then for sure that, maybe a certain color toward it, you tell everybody that please follow the color patterns right here. You got the color wheel patterns right here, the color patterns right there. You go ahead and change the color up just a little bit, so that way, anybody who's going to be using the products, or you're working on anything, that you're going to see that on there to where that you see these designs for these different these different signs right here, the warning signs and then the caution signs right there. So it sure seemed like especially the fireworks, that maybe like any designer might say that is to where that if you're going to see any source of warning sign on any source of or anything that you're going to be working with, for sure. But it's like every time you do see any source of warning sign or any source of label, warning label or anything like that, you're going to maybe see a different color pattern right there. And 102 that any sorts of warning labels that you see right there, you see the red, orange, type design right there, and at 102 that okay, what am I so so if you would actually be printing out any source of warning labels right here, and let's just say that usually that those warning labels are going to be printed like on like a red type label right here, but usually it's like so it's like so every time you do think about that, then 102 is to where you see the warning signs and everything, but it's like so it's like whenever you actually go somewhere and actually be talking to somebody, and you may 102 that you may not always see those warning signs and those warning labels, and that's why it seems like to where that somebody might even say is toward well, if you don't see any warning labels or any warning signs or caution signs or anything like that on there, how are you really going to know about for anything that you're going to be wearing, especially made in America? But still, how do you really know if there's if we're talking about maybe cleaning chemicals or anything like that, cleaning detergents or anything like that, and maybe that's another reasons why people might say that made in America, and there will be like maybe something like a product where it's going to be stamped with a warning sign on there. With a warning sign, it's going to maybe like a small label or something like that printed on the product, and they're going to say is toward warning. And so ways of how you want to describe for a warning right here, something that catches the mind by concern. By concern meaning is toward it that you are you notice something wrong about something to be not to be very normal right there. So really that so if you see any source of warning sign, but people might say is toward well really that you don't actually see any source of warning sign. What you actually notice is toward that if you're going to be somewhere where you see, I'm like, yeah, if you're going maybe at a restaurant or somewhere, and a 102 is toward it, if you notice something wrong about something going on, for sure, and knowing about when you were to speak up about something, but it's like, yeah, so a lot of times it's like, yeah, a lot of it has to go by the sense. And the sense of smell and taste, and so it's like, yeah, so a lot of times everybody might say is toward yeah, the sense. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, so every time you do think about that in 102, that, you got the sense of smell and maybe taste, and the touch and all that, you notice something wrong just by the sense, right? So every time you do think about that in year 102, that yeah, if you notice something wrong about something for sure, really, do did anybody else notice anything wrong about this, or you're wrong about that, or something like that? And that is why it seems like as to where that every time you do think about that, really, what does all that mean? And so that's why it seems like, really, that every time you do think about that, in 102, that, warning signs, any warning signs or any caution signs or anything, do they really all have to be printed on labels? And you might think as to, well, really, that they are right, that if you don't really notice anything wrong about that product or anything else that you notice about something, but still, that when we do think about a warning sign, meaning is toward it, you notice anything that comes by concern, right? Anything by concern, or anything that you notice that comes to your attention, right? And so that's why it seems like that every time you do think about that 102, that for anything about warnings and any warning signs or caution signs or anything, but it's like, yeah, so really that so whenever you do look at any source of photograph, right, and you're thinking as toward it, yeah, that where do you think that you would find any source of warning signs in general? But people might say that a lot of it has to do with any navigation buttons, or maybe anything about what you call, like, yeah, so if you're going to be printing off anything, any labels or anything, for sure, do you think that maybe print off any warning labels would help out a lot with anybody might even say is toward, yeah, well, especially if you're trying to open up something, or if you're trying to proceed to the next steps or something like that. But really, that anything that's going to capture your mind by concern, and really, people might say that that's really what it means, is to where while you're working on something, something that captures your mind by concern. Go by like so yeah. So every time you do think about that, then 102 is to where that what it pretty much means is to where that you get the sense of that something is something's not right, something's wrong, and you're just trying to figure out what it is. And so it's like everybody else may say that usually you would see something like that. Maybe like if you're going to be working around a lot of heavy equipment or something like that, doing any working maybe in a lab or somewhere like that, where you're going to be working with high exposure type of chemicals or anything like that. And so that's why it seems like is toward talking about with warning signs and everything. But really, why do you think that you would think that anything about Made in America would come across that source of attention? But still, I thought I'd go and just talk about that. But then also talk about the safe and happy 4th of July right here. In case of anybody 102, yeah, we can see in the dark right here. And really, what does that mean? Well, that means is to where that anything, if you consider anything to be cool, whenever it comes to whenever it gets dark, that you see the fireworks and all that, the glow in the dark, glow in the dark stars, a lot of stuff that you see around the 4th of July, and so stuff like that. But anyway, I thought I'd talk about that. You talk about precaution signs and warning signs and all of that. But the way I think about it too, though, that when we do speak about any sorts of sense of signs, though, is to we're knowing about when do you think that you would want to speak up about something that you see wrong about something? Well, for sure that knowing about if it comes across your attention to where that you really need to speak up about something. But way I think about it too, though, it is like, if you notice something wrong, that really, and if anybody else has noticed something wrong about something, for sure. But still, knowing about with me though that when it comes to understanding about about warning signs. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.